Let me share with you 3 of my best all-time driver videos. You know, driving doesn't have to be that complicated, especially when you get some of the secrets that I'm going to share with you here. Let's go and get started. All right, now you're probably wondering, what the heck is this giant white thing and what does it have to do with me hitting my driver well? Well, it's actually something that's really important in the golf swing. Unfortunately, my flight scope radar won't work with this giant door in the way, but that's exactly what this is. This is a door that I just took off a sliding door off the hinges, strapped a 2x4 to it, and it's representing what's called the vertical swing plane. Now, when you test professional golfers versus recreational golfers, what they found is that professional golfers have a flatter vertical swing plane. So you can imagine this as the plane that my club head is coming through, is traveling on as I'm going through contact. And what they found is that the lower handicap golfers have a flatter vertical swing plane, and higher handicap golfers tend to have a more upright vertical swing plane. This makes a huge difference in all kinds of things that can pop up in your golf swing. So let me run through, and the great thing about this, you don't have to have this door here. This is just a visual representation of what's happening. By changing your mindset and changing what you're visualizing the goal of a golf swing to be, a lot of these things will start to clear themselves up. So let's start with piece number 1, which is coming up out of your posture. You see, a lot of times when I have the idea that I'm going to hit at this golf ball, I'll tend to come down and pull down toward the ground. And what that does is that gets a much steeper club shaft. And this is why most players have too upright of a vertical swing plane. As they start to pull down toward the golf ball, this club is too steep, and if I kept going down on this angle, it would just slam into the ground. So I'll tend to stand up out of my posture, and that will shallow the club some. And then in an effort to hit the golf ball or an effort to redirect it, I'll then have to raise my hands up, and all of a sudden, this driver angle is much more upright. Now, if you're wondering, for a driver, this swing plane angle for tour players on average is 45 degrees. And as you go into shorter and shorter irons, because those are more upright, let's say as we go to a wedge here, they're much more vertical. So a 6-iron is more at 60 degrees. So this would be my driver's kind of representation of the vertical swing plane. This would be my pitching wedge representation. Now the cool thing about this is you're probably thinking right now, you know, Clay, this is getting even more complicated. How do I know if I'm on the right plane? This seems like it's going to be a lot of work to get. Well, I got great news for you. Every single player that I've ever worked with that wasn't a low handicap golfer, barring maybe a handful of players here and there, they've all been too vertical. And a great way to check this is look at your divots. If your divots have that nice square dollar bill shape to them, you're probably coming down on the correct swing plane with an iron. If your divots are toe down, meaning that my handle raises up, the outside of my divot is deeper than the heel of my divot, or the leading edge, or when my club very first hits the ground, isn't perfectly flush, isn't perfectly flat, that means that your swing plane is too vertical. And like I said, dang near every single golfer, I'm talking thousands of golfers, unless they were a scratch or better, were all pretty much too vertical in their swing planes. You got to flatten that out. So when I think about this door here, now all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense how I stay in my posture. Well, how would I swing under this door? I definitely wouldn't be able to swing under this door easier if I stood up out of my posture. That would make it even tougher. I would want to feel like I actually get my upper body going down toward the ground. I kind of lower my body, and I'm swinging under this door this way. Now I'm exaggerating there for example's sake, but if you feel much more down under like this, then that's really going to help you to shallow out that swing plane and stay in your posture all the way through. A second thing here, if I think about, instead of pulling this club down toward the ground, I now think about pulling it on this angle. So I'm really trying to slot the club in here, much on a flatter plane so it can fit underneath this door, and I'm pulling it more toward the golf ball. And I can even imagine the butt end of the club is facing out to that golf ball. Now all of a sudden, look at my right elbow, it begins to tuck under. Look at my club shaft, it lays down flatter. If I'm looking from face on, this is a big key for this, and I'll mention this here in a minute, but if I'm looking from face on, if I pull the club down, this looks very steep and not very much lag. Watch what happens when I shallow this plane out. Now all of a sudden it looks like a ton of lag. So when you're looking at somebody like Sergio Garcia or players that just have massive amounts of lag, you just wish you could have that sharp angle like that because you know that can really help with your golf swing. A big part of that is coming from shallowing it out this way, which gives the appearance of tons more lag in the downswing. So what I want you to do is to visualize this when you're hitting some golf balls and feel like you're getting under this door. Another big piece of this, one thing that I really like, is I like to feel like my butt cheeks are scraping the ground. So as soon as I make a downswing, I feel like I'm putting my butt cheeks right on the ground and I'm staying down there on that. Now again, that's going to help me from standing up out of my posture, but it's also going to help me to get on a better plane and all these other things that we're talking about here. So let me give you an example of what that would look like, or what I feel like I'm doing when I do this. So I'm squatting, my legs are staying bent, this is down on the ground. I feel like I'm getting under this door and I'm pulling the butt cap toward the golf ball, and that allows me to swing on a much shallower plane. Now, like I said, you're not going to be able to see that on the launch monitor because the door's in the way of the readings, but you can see how that was a really exaggerated example of how to shallow that out.
Hitting those wild tee shots can be so frustrating. You feel like you hit a solid one, you look up, and it's snap hooking or it's slicing up over the trees. Well, the reason this is happening is because you're coming down steep. You need to start getting the club to shallow out and work from the inside. So what does it mean to be steep? Well, if you're steep, we're referencing how the club is pitched in the start of the downswing, right? So this would be a steep shaft, and this would be a shallow shaft. Ideally, we would see this club, the butt end of this club, to be pointing a little bit outside the golf ball as we're coming down. That would be ideal. If it's inside the ball, that's going to be considered a steep position. Well, why is this an issue? Well, when you're steep, you basically have two options. You either have option number one, where you stay in your posture and you come over the top, right? And that's going to be your big slice because your path is to the left, the face gets open, and you hit a big slice. The other thing that I see some better players do to compensate for this is they'll be steep, but then they'll stand up out of it, and now the club is working too much from the inside. I throw my hands at it, and there's the big snap hook into the woods, right? So we need to get this club in a shallow position so that way we can stay in our posture, rotate into the ball, have that nice square face, hit those easy, dead straight drives. So what are the easy and simple things that we can do to make this happen? We heard we need to shift our weight. We need to do something with our elbow. We need to be doing something with our lead leg, right? Those are all things that can definitely help, but what are the really simple things that we can do and go implement at the range right now? Well, when I look at most players who are struggling coming down steep, it starts with the setup. So when you set up with the driver, because the ball position is more forward, we're going to tend to open our knees, we're going to tend to open our hips, we're going to tend to get our arms, our trail arms going to kind of come over, our shoulders tend to open up, basically so that way we can kind of face the golf ball, right? This feels very comfortable. I'm exaggerating, but if I come down and I'm like, this just feels very comfortable, like I'm facing the ball. Whereas if the ball was back here, I would be more square with things. So we have to make a concerted effort when we're in our setup with our driver to get everything to feel like everything is really closed off. So what I would try to do when you set up with your driver, I would try to feel like your knees are pointing right of the target. The hips are pointing right of the target. My arms, right? I want to get my arms pointing right of the target. And the way that I would do that with my trail arm, I'd want to make sure that my elbow is kind of bent in and my point of my elbow is kind of pointing down toward my hip. If I get my elbow kind of pointing out like this, that means that I'm kind of coming over like this, and I'm going to tend to want to come over the top when I do that. So I want to make sure that my elbow is kind of tucked in like that. I'm going to get my shoulders even pointing to the right of the target. I actually want you to overdo these things at first. Let's get the club, let's get into a setup position that allows us to actually over shallow the club at first, and then we can ease off of that. So get everything turned and pointing to the right, and then set up the ball. It's going to feel really weird. You're going to have more spine tilt. You're going to feel like you're way more behind the ball. But this is what the best players do to hit those nice, powerful draws down the middle of the fairway. So get everything pointed, get everything kind of closed off here in the setup. That's going to make things a lot easier. So that's step number one. Get into a setup position that allows you to more easily shallow out the club in the start of the downswing. Get everything really closed off. Step number two is to set up a feedback mechanism that is going to tell you whether you're shallowing out the club or not. So what I like to do is I like to take a head cover and I want to place it in front of about a club head width in front of the ball here. And then I want to place it along the target line. So if this is my target line right here, I'm going to place this head cover along the target line. And use your driver head cover because it's a little bit bigger than the other ones. So that way you won't swing over the top of it, right? If you use like a little hybrid head cover or something like that, you may be swinging over the top, but you may just swing over the top of it and it won't give you the feedback that you're looking for. So use this nice, big driver head cover so that way you're going to get the feedback that you're looking for here. Now the other thing that I like to do is I like to take an alignment stick, or you can use a club, but I like to place it behind the ball, about a foot behind the ball, but I want to angle it out to the right. It's almost like if I'm standing at home plate here, this is going to be pointing down the first baseline. And what this serves as is a good visual for how I want to feel like this club is tracking down. Now this is exaggerated. We don't really want to swing 45 degrees into out, but like I said, we want to overdo shallowing out the club at first, so that way we can more easily ease off of it later. So I don't have a ball here right now, and for good reason, because I want you to start out just hitting the tee, right? So set up, get in your closed setup position, get everything pointed off to the right here, get that elbow tucked in, get everything nice and closed off here. And the first thing I want you to do, I kind of just want you to do like a shadow rep. So what that means is I want you to map out what the movement's going to be like in slow motion. So I'm going to go up to the top, and then I'm going to map out how would I get to where I would swing this club close to down this alignment stick here, hit the tee, and then miss the head cover as I'm coming through. So I'm just going to do a couple slow shadow repetitions where I'm getting the sense and feel for what I need to do there. Once I've done a few of those and I feel like, okay, I can do this in a normal swing, what I want you to do is I want you to set up to that, get everything nice and closed off here. All right, so I'm going to be nice and closed off with it. And I'm going to just take a nice, easy swing where I'm going to try to clip this tee and miss that head cover, right? Because if I hit the head cover, that's telling me that I'm not coming in shallow enough, right? I need to work on getting it more shallow. So I'm going to take a nice, easy swing here. So you can see there, I very easily missed the head cover there. I probably swung a mile from the inside. It's way too shallow, but that's what we need to feel here in the beginning stages. So that was a nice and easy swing. Work up to faster and faster swings. What I want you to do is I actually want you to get to where you can do 10 in a row, full speed swing, where you are missing the head cover and clipping that tee, right? If you hit the head cover, gotta start over, right? So the reason why we want to do this is that we don't want to jump start in, go too fast and go to the next stage if we don't really have this part down yet. Because if you go to the next stage of this drill and you're not able to do this yet, you're just not going to be able to do the next stage. So we have to get 10 in a row at normal speed where we're clipping the tee, missing the head cover. Once we've done that, now what we can do is we can add the ball. And again, what I want you to do is I want you to map this out. Get your setup, get this to where you're mapping this out to where you're coming in and you be hitting the ball and missing the head cover. And again, start out with slower swings, right? Because it doesn't mean you can't try to do a full speed swing right off the bat, but most likely at full speed, because the added difficulty of having the ball there, you're probably going to hit the head cover. So don't worry about it. Start out with a slower swing if you want to, and then you can build up to that. Once you're able to do that, then I want you to do, again, 10 full speed swings, your normal speed, where you miss the head cover and hit the ball. Now, the key to this is I don't want you to worry about where the ball goes. The goal of this task is to hit the ball and miss the head cover, right? Because that's telling you that you are shallowing out the club. You're swinging the club from the inside, right? You're probably going to hit it to the right is most likely what's going to happen. You're probably going to hit like a push slice to the right. That's okay as long as you are missing this, because that's the second stage, is missing the head cover. So stage one is missing the head cover without the ball, right? Stage two is missing the head cover with the ball there, but we don't care where the ball goes.
Now I got to tell you, there's one very basic driver move that makes a world of difference on how well you're going to hit the big stick, how far you're going to hit it, and how straight you're going to hit it. Most players that I see will set up to the ball very much too vertically, meaning that their spine is straight up and down, their head is kind of between their feet, and the ball may be even a little bit more toward the middle of their stance. And when they swing in their downswing, because we're told to kind of square the club face up by rolling our forearms over, a lot of times what will happen is we'll stand up out of our posture in the downswing, meaning my upper body starts to lean back like this so that my arms can throw, and I'm very much vertical or straight up and down here. Well, the best drivers in the game, actually every single player on the PGA Tour, you can line them up from 1 all the way to 200. Every single one of them is not going to be doing that. They're going to be behind the golf ball. The ball position is going to be on the inside of the front foot. From there, if I had my left arm from my shoulder kind of straight down toward the driver, my right arm would be angled back like this. So instead of my shoulders being level, I'm going to have my shoulders this way. There's a couple ways I can do this. I'm going to show you several different ways to get this feeling. Number one, I can start with my hands to my sides. This would be vertical. My fingertips are the same distance down my pant legs. As I start to tilt my shoulders, I'm going to continue to tilt them, so I get a little bit of knee flex. I tilt my shoulders until my right fingers are just above my kneecap, and my left fingers have kind of slid up to just below my pocket on my pants there. That will get my shoulders tilted like this. It gets my head behind the golf ball, and now all of a sudden I'm in a position here to where I can create a ton of lag in the downswing. I can comfortably create lag. I can come from the slot or from the inside, and then from there I can release on out through the ball and get a lot of extension as I'm coming through there. You see, if I swing too vertically like this, I'm going to end up throwing my arms down at it and standing up out of my posture. So let's go ahead and try the wrong way here again. I'm going to stand up like that. I feel like I'm kind of pushing the club through, very awkward, where as I let my arms slide down my legs like this, now I'm behind it. I almost feel like I'm going to, if I had an axe here, I'd be hitting it. So if this is the tip of the axe, I'd be hitting it from the inside like this, and my shoulders are angled behind it. It's just a much more powerful position. From there, I feel like I can absolutely hammer it. I don't know why it's going so quick on this screen today, but that one, 290 carry, 313 total distance, much easier to hit a draw, much easier to come from the inside. So tilting the shoulders, sliding the hands down, that's one way of doing it. Now another way, if I was to take my club, we're getting to the exact same result here, but if my hips are out of line, it's not going to work. So I'm going to put this club on the front of my pants here, on my belt, where my belt is, on my belt loops. So it's the same height, it's level with my hips. From there, I'm going to go ahead and bump my hips so that my left hip is a little higher, my right hip is a little lower, and now you can see this club shaft gets slightly angled up like that. So this would be level, this would be me leaning the other way. I'm getting a little bump this way, and I'm slightly closing my hips. This makes it a little easier to get my body tilted back behind the golf ball slightly. So all I'm doing there is tilting it, turning it a little bit closed, and now all of a sudden, again, I'm opening up this big amount of room, this big amount of space to come from the inside and to get that club shallowed out so that I can hit that nice draw. Now here, I'm going to overdraw it a little bit. I'd rather do that a little extra because most players would love to hit a little extra draw, if anything. So now I bump my hips forward, a little bit closed, and again, I'm creating that same kind of feeling where it's tilting my shoulders, my head is behind the golf ball. There we go. Killed that one. Again, 290-ish carry, 287.4, 312 total distance. I'm pretty daggone happy with that. Now here's the problem with that. There's two ways to square the golf club. One way to square the golf club would be to release my forearms, to feel like my forearms are going to roll over each other, and that's going to take this club face and square this club face up. Now the problem with that idea is that in order to get the face square, my forearms need to be released, neutral like this. Well, I can't get in this position with my forearms neutral. If I'm in this position like we just talked about, look at my right forearm. It's much lower than my left forearm. Look at that angle there to where now I'm coming from the inside, I'm behind this golf ball. that would have my forearms angled like this. That would be like my face being wide open. So if I take my forearms like that and I don't square the club face up the ways the pros are doing it, look how the face is pointing over there to the right somewhere. So if you've been taught to square the club face like that, and all of a sudden you get behind this golf ball, everybody's telling you, get from the slot, get from the inside. But if you've been told the wrong way to square the club face, here's what happens when you swing one from the inside. The ball goes to the right and even farther to the right. That's in the trees in the right rough. Maybe you hit it pretty decent, maybe you didn't, but it's going way too far that way, which you don't really want to have happen. The pros are doing something different. They're using something I call the anti-roll method. They're not rolling these forearms to square them up. They're able to get from the slot, get that arm there, and they square up the face by using the arms, the forearms, and the wrist in the right way. Now notice how my forearms are much more in the pro position like I talked about, but look at the club face, nice and square, so I can hit the heck out of the golf ball. I'm going to teach you how to do that in my anti-roll method video, which I'm going to play a preview of here in 1 second. All you need to do is go ahead and click the card that pops up on your screen somewhere. If you don't see one of those cards, don't worry. Go down to the description below, click the link there. You'll get instant access to my anti-roll method video. Let's go ahead and get started with it. I cannot wait to share with you the anti-roll method, start helping you play your best golf ever. So here's the bottom line. If you've been taught to roll the club in the early downswing, that causes the shaft to get steep. And that steep club causes all your problems. It causes you to hit it way behind the big hitters and way inconsistent with your quality of strikes. So you're in the tall grass and the trees and the hazards all day long. Now the great news is this. There's really only 2 pieces that you need to know to fix all these problems. The first one is we need to learn the proper way to square up the club face. Instead of rolling the forearms and getting steep, there's another way that the pros do this. Once you learn this right way to square up the club face, then you can shallow out from the inside and everything starts to fit together. Now I'm going to teach you this right now in what I call the anti-roll method. You may also hear this called the motorcycle move or the tour twist, but let's walk through exactly how to do that. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and go kind of in the last parallel in the downswing. So here, I want my hips to go ahead and be opening up. I want my club to be parallel with the ground, and I want my hands to be in front of my right thigh. Now, when I take my grip, you're going to notice that when I do this, the club face is basically straight up and down. So if I'm looking at it from this angle, you'll see the face is straight up and down, and my logo of my glove is pointed out in front of me. Now from there,